It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate, oh yeah.
Hello everyone and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we run down the latest superhero entertainment news.
Oh, we love TV, movies, and superheroes, so let's talk it all out.
My name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And this week, we're stepping into the world of Moon Knight, Mike.
And the moon is not made of cheese, or at least we have not seen cheese in the trailer, but more to come from that.
Possible cheese. The Batman gets a long movie.
Have you ever seen that, I think it's either Korean, Japanese, or maybe Chinese commercial, because they're always known for their outlandish commercials. The Long Man commercial.
No,
Long Man. You would know it if you heard it. That just makes me think of that.
I'm gonna have to look this up.
A long Batman movie. Yeah, it'll blow your mind. It actually has like continuity. Like the commercials, people have edited them and put them all together, and you can see like this whole story of like this woman that's like trying to date this man that's. I think he's eating long bubble gum. I think that's what it was. Oh. But please continue.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, noted for later. Lord of the Rings teases its return to pop culture and more.
Chris, I mentioned this a little bit earlier to you, but this is for our audience. I have a plea for decency, people out there. If you are
I know what's coming.
If you are trying to sell or purchase anything from an online marketplace, I'm talking OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, hell, even eBay. Just please be timely with your communications. I was complaining to Chris for probably like 20 minutes about how like I am like laser focused on getting back to people. Like I'm trying to sell this fridge that's in my garage. Like I priced it to sell. I'm getting into people's DMs with them, and they'll just like I'll see they read my message and they'll just disappear. Like I think they're just like throwing their phones into like a nearby volcano, into like a storm drain or something like that, and they just vanish off the face of the earth. So it's just a plea to decency. If you're trying to buy something from somebody on the internet and they're being very punctual about their messages, just please return the favor and get the thing that you want to buy.
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that, Chris.
Well, I you know me, I'm very much into older video games, and I was able to score a pretty good deal on a Dreamcast, a Sega Dreamcast, off online marketplace this week, and or not this week, a couple weeks ago, and it's interesting because like you message like yeah it's available, and then they don't respond either. Like it goes the other way. Like there's some sketchy sellers on there who just kind of like disappear until they're like, okay, well now you're on my time. I'm like I can't just leave my work in the middle of the day to go buy your Sega Dreamcast, sir. Like I appreciate it, but everything ended up working out. But I agree. Online sales is a very hard thing to navigate. But speaking of old games, I sent you this video. I've been a little under the weather this week, so I was able to work at home. So I did not get anyone sick. It's not COVID. It's a stomach bug / flu, some variety. So thank God it's not COVID, but I still hate being sick, right? Question mark. But I was able to finish my arcade this week a little bit more, and I sent some of that to you, Mike, of how the buttons actually light up with the game you're trying to play with the right colors, and how the game will actually speak to you what controls to use, even in case you're not familiar with the game.
I had like a flashback. This obviously isn't in an arcade scenario, but like when you would be playing, like you'd be renting like a Super Nintendo game or a Sega Genesis game from like the local Blockbuster, right? And it would come with the instructional booklet sometimes, and then you'd be flipping through it, like trying to figure out how to do moves and stuff. It's just like if you just talked to me at the beginning, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, and while it doesn't do all like the fatalities of Mortal Kombat, but like. If I've got 6 buttons per player, and if you're playing NFL Blitz, and I only say this because the NFL playoffs are going on right now, you only use 3 of the 6 buttons, and if you come up and you're like all 6 buttons are glowing, like, and I know which ones to play with, but you don't. That's a little unfair. To play with. So we did that. And I sent some to you. I believe was it The Simpsons or like Street Fighter? I think maybe I sent to you. And it's just been really fun to play with this week and have something to focus on, other than work throughout the day. So very thrilled with that. But at the same time, I don't think we have a lot to talk about this. But I used some of this time to actually watch all of the Peacemaker episodes and catch up through episode 4. And you were able to do the same? Is that correct?
Yes, I am up to date. I feel like I have to say the number one driving force to getting my wife and I into Peacemaker, it's still that opening, Chris.
Yeah.
The song, is it "Do You Want to Taste It" or
Yes.
"Taste It"? I don't know the exact name of the song, but it has now made it onto
Wigwam.
both of my wife and I's Spotify playlists. She was organizing her office room today, and I could hear it coming from her speakerphone. And I was listening to it earlier today when I was running errands. It's just like there's one thing that you can always count on from James Gunn is he's going to expose you to classic rock music that maybe you might not be familiar with. And I mean, I grew up in a household where my dad blared like classic rock all the time, but just the classic rock that he liked to listen to. So I guess Wigwam, like you said, Chris, was not in the rotation. So this is the first time I've ever heard the song, but I've already listened to it, I think at least a dozen times. We had some people over the other night that hadn't watched Peacemaker yet, so I was just like, I'm just going to show you the intro. It's on YouTube, and you're just going to be floored by the choreography and the song selection. So, yes, I'm up to date on Peacemaker.
Yeah. I mean, I was able to as well. Again, all the episodes have really good soundtrack and song choices, and I do have to say though. While I agree with you that the one of the things getting through is the soundtrack stuff. I'm not. Some people are really head over heels for the show. I'm not in love with it yet. But I think it's still good. I'm just not in love with it yet, and I don't know what it's missing. But there's a lot of just shock value in the show, and sometimes it's just like. I get it. It's shocking. It's pushing pushing the envelope, if you will. But there's still something missing that's just making me fall in love with it as a show.
Yeah, I think I could kind of echo those sentiments a little bit. I am enjoying myself. It is entertaining me for an hour each week. But I feel like it's getting a little murky when it comes to who's good and who's bad and when they're good and when they're bad. Now, somebody could say oh, well, that's what James Gunn is going for. He's kind of blurring the lines between a hero and a villain. And I get that kind of story is being set up within this first season of Peacemaker. But it seems like the characters conveniently do bad things when it's most convenient for the story, and then they do good things when it's the most convenient for the story. So it just kind of seems like I wish that they would be a little bit more true to the character, and then the kind of the story would kind of motivate them a little bit more. But I'm still having a good time. There's still some great James Gunn's quip and writing and just kind of off the wall craziness.
Yeah, there's great acting. I'll tell you, every actor in here really sells their parts. Even with the more recent, we saw him as vigilante actor who, when we saw the first show, we thought was more of a Deadpool character. Very much not so in the show at all. Very, very interesting. And then again, always Robert Patrick, who was the original T-1000 Terminator and Terminator 2. As his dad.
Oh my God, that's who it is?
Yeah.
Holy shit. I've been staring at this dude for weeks now, going, why does he look so familiar? And I just couldn't place it. Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Whew. Chris, thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I mean, I always could have looked it up, but usually I have a thing where if I'm actively watching a show, I don't go look it up on IMDb because you never know what's going to be spoiled, who's going to be on the cast list that you haven't seen yet, or if a character dies, right? If I see a character's only in 2 episodes of Peacemaker, I'm like, oh, that means they're dead. They're not coming back or something like that. So,
yeah.
Whew, okay, good to know.
Yeah. There you go. So he's he just knows how to play a very, very intimidating, mean person all throughout. He was really nice though, so that's really fun. I'm gonna continue watching it every week. Again, we are huge fans of scheduled television here in this house. Every Wednesday is Boba Fett, every Thursday is now Peacemaker until it's done, and we'll talk about what's coming up later down the list here, Mike. But anything else you want to add to this? You want us to get into this?
I mean, I could soundboard just real quick. There's a new Freeform show called Single Drunk Female that my wife and I started watching last night, and it's pretty funny. Freeform's like a wild network, right? You know, sometimes for a while they were trying to build their own little Marvel universe, and then that kind of fell through when Jeff Loeb got tanked. But they have some kind of alternative comedy stuff there occasionally, and I after 2 episodes it was pretty funny, so I'll check in on that again whenever it pops up in my Hulu feed again.
Yeah, and again, for those who don't know, Freeform used to be ABC Family, which always provided some good shows throughout its tenure under that name, so don't underestimate it at all. But we'll jump into the news here. I'm going to hit you the news. I sent this to you and I said, Mike, this is the most shocking news article this week, a news headline this week, and you were like, I didn't expect to see that either. But The Eternals is the top watched MCU movie on Disney Plus since its debut, and it even beat Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings, which we know that's a good movie. We enjoy that. Eternals, more lukewarm. People have always been lukewarm on, but the general audience may not have had a chance to go to the theaters, but are now being able to catch up on home, and that's kind of interesting to know that it's got, I guess, legs, if you will. On the streaming service. This is one of those crazy headlines where you could interpret this, I think, any way you wanted to. Whatever point you wanted to prove, whatever kind of narrative you're trying to push forward, you could get it right out of this headline, right? You could say, even if you're a person that hated Eternals, you could say oh, it's the top watched MCU movie on Disney. It's well, yeah, just because it's a new movie, it's just what else is there to watch? I'm sure people are still watching Endgame and Infinity War, but that'd be their 4th, 5th, 6th watch or whatever, if they've never seen that before. But you could say if it's doing better than Shang-Chi, maybe people were just waiting until this was available. Me and you, we saw Shang-Chi in theaters, but not everybody did. Yep. So there's many ways to spin this narrative, but I wouldn't be surprised if when people saw the trailers for the Eternals, they didn't see a lot of familiar faces, right? There's not really a lot of cameos from previous MCU characters to put in the trailer to go oh, go watch this. I don't think there's none in that movie. As far as I know, right? I mean, yeah, I think in some later trailers they say Thanos or Thanos or Thanos. However Selma Hayek was saying it. But yeah, beyond that, if you're just a casual kind of Marvel observer and you just blinked during the trailer where the Marvel logo was, you might not even have known what this was. So I would think people would go oh, this is a brand new property. It's not connected to anything else I've watched in the last 10 years. It'll land on Disney Plus eventually, or maybe they didn't even think that. Maybe they just had Disney Plus, and then one day Eternals is there. Okay, let's watch it. So, who knows? Maybe this will kind of pivot some of the decisions. We were talking about this last week on the podcast that some producer over at Marvel has said that they're being a little bit more reactionary. I don't know by how much. I don't know how much the scale slides, but they want to see how the audience reacts. So maybe this would be a positive for kind of the Eternals universe in general. Be people are seeking these characters. Oh, yeah, and again, the asterisk is it came out during a pandemic, right? In the middle, I believe, right when the Omicron variant was starting to rise even a little bit there. So is the box office because people didn't like it, or just because they didn't feel like going and feel like everyone was saving it up for Spider-Man, right? If we're gonna go during Spider-Man, but. Yeah, it's just one of those things where we've talked. This movie isn't really focused on children. This isn't something you put down in front of your kids and be like, "Oh my gosh, we want to watch the Eternals, Mom and Dad." And no, they're not saying that. I posited, you've got a lot of middle age and higher men seeing Selma Hayek and Angelina Jolie in the screenshots on Disney Plus and watching it. So. They're like, you've been watching the Eternals? He's watching on his phone in the house while everything else is on. His kids are watching Bluey or something like that. And
you can't tell kids to sit down and learn about Mesopotamia. Through Marvel.
Exactly.
Now I think I would say we were more positive on Eternal, so we're obviously not dogging on it. But I have a feeling the next incarnation of these characters is probably going to be a lot more. Not palatable, but maybe a little bit easier to sell.
It'll probably be streamlined. I think you selling 8,000 to 10,000 years of history in a movie it was a beautiful movie, and it does a lot. But you have 10 main characters, and I think the end of the film, no spoilers or not, really sets them in two different directions. Thankfully, so you can have two groups dealing with different things, and that's half the cast each or less. So I think that's a better way to posit these characters going forward, rather than say, hey, here's 10 every time. Hope you remember who they are and what's going on. So yeah, I agree. So anyway, top debut in Disney Plus. So congratulations for it. It doesn't have any catchy songs. Like, we don't talk about Bruno, so I don't think you're going to catch it on the radio. But you never know. You never know what's going to happen next with pop culture. Moving right along here, we talked about this literally last week. Moon Knight trailer dropped on Monday during some sort of sports ball game. I believe it's football. And during the full moon, and we got the full trailer, Mike. This is showing the season and confirming that March 30th release date that we talked about last week as well. So that was great. I enjoyed this trailer. I think a lot of people enjoyed this trailer. Like, I've never seen so much discourse about or discussion, not discourse, but discussion about it.
Yeah,
online.
It was intense. I feel like it's been a while since I've watched a trailer for like a Marvel property where I felt the intensity from what I was watching. It almost felt like I was watching a trailer, maybe not necessarily for like a movie, but it seemed like this is going to be a very high thrill series. So it looks great. I mean, I feel like we didn't get a whole lot outside of that little teaser. Well, that's not necessarily true. Like, the little teaser that we got on Sunday just before this came out, I felt like showed off all of like the big visual spectacle, right? Like, we saw Moon Knight punching that little creature or whatever it's supposed to be. But I think is the kind of the brief kind of over the shoulder shot from that skull bird thing, was that new? Was that in this trailer? Or I don't remember if it was in the teaser. It's like
I don't remember. I don't think Khonshu was in the teaser. And if it was very for a brief second. It wasn't the whole hallway walk.
That's pretty creepy looking. I mean, the visuals of that, of just like this really elongated kind of bird skull, just kind of like sulk. And it looks like it's at least 8 or 9 foot tall.
Oh yeah,
very creepy at the end of a hallway. I was like, all right.
Yeah, and then we get to see the suit kind of wrap around him. It's kind of like it's got its own little mind. But then also we find out that Oscar, he's got his British accent here. It's a Stephen, but he's also someone named Mark. So we get some little hints into the different possibly personalities living in his head. Yeah,
they the trailer kind of points at maybe a little bit of an amnesia storyline. Like, Oscar Isaac wakes up one day, he's got to figure out what's happening. We saw a little bit of that in Captain Marvel, right? So maybe we'll get a little bit of that again here. But, if it's supposed to be more of a split personality situation, usually amnesia stories kind of get stretched out over time where the character kind of slowly picks up the pieces. But if they're like flipping out of the personalities, like me, myself, and Irene, that's the only other property I can like think of in my head right now is split personalities. We'll see how it goes.
Well, the movie Split with
James
McAvoy.
great.
That's a really good one. I can see this here. There's not really, I guess there's not a whole lot of reveals here, but I guess the big thing is we get to see the iconic suit, which is obviously pitch white with glowing eyes. Seems to be a little mystical, like we talked about. We last week, the supernatural aspects are really kind of kicking up here. But I think the other big thing here is, you put this in our show notes, is one scene where it looks like he comes to and he's just shot somebody in the back of a truck, and on behind that truck it says Von D. And there's a huge series. Is this Victor Von Doom delivery stuff here, Mike? Were you able to look into this a little bit more or not?
I saw some people kind of discussing what this could or couldn't be. There's like 2 shots in the trailer that shows these cardboard boxes, right? The closest one we get to see is when Oscar Isaac is inside of the delivery truck. I think it's, I don't know if he's driver's seat, passenger seat. I don't quite remember.
He's driving. I've got it pulled up right here. Yeah, he's driving.
Yeah, but right over his shoulder, you can see the box. It says Von space and then a capital D. So you could say like, is that, Von Doom Industries, Von Doom, who knows what it could be. But there's another shot of the boxes where you get to see them unobstructed, but it's a wider shot the word is definitely longer than doom, but you can't read exactly what it is. So I don't know. It's just a fun speculation to have, right? But also, if it is or isn't, I wouldn't be surprised that anybody would make this jump. I don't think this is quite as far as of a reach as like the Mephisto stuff, right?
Yeah.
Just because we've seen this type of stuff in all superhero franchise movies, even over at DC. They love putting like company logos on stuff. Like we saw Wayne Enterprises on satellites before we ever saw Bruce Wayne. We've seen Roxxon on stuff for years, and I don't think we've seen anything really materially show up with Roxxon. I don't know. I didn't really watch Cloak and Dagger. Maybe there was more in there. So this is not out of the norm. And also, this will kind of be a fun way to kind of slow roll kind of the existence of Latveria, like as a big like enterprise, you know.
So I'm pretty sure it's a bakery company based on the second shot, and there's like little cupcakes on the boxes. But like at the same time, Marvel is known for digitally editing things. Like, what if the long form cupcakes are like literally just masks on the boxes to throw us off? Like, you know, like, oh, we're not gonna say it's Von Doom in the trailer, but really it's Von Doom when you watch the show, kind of thing. Wouldn't be surprised. But you know, the shows are great because they leave a lot. You know, they do tie to the larger universe and vice versa. And if it is, if he is in Europe and doing stuff, I believe it looked like he might have been in Europe for some of this, right? Like his art. Is he like in an art museum or something like that?
Yeah, I honestly would be pretty shocked if this winds up in America at all. This seems like it's going to be a very kind of European or at least not westernized setting, you know, especially, you know, when you're talking about like kind of like Egyptian mythology and stuff like that, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm very thrilled to see kind of what they do and where they go with it, but yeah, like there's a lot of I guess supernatural stuff tied to Moon Knight. I'm very excited to see how they bring this in here, especially like you said, Khonshu, literally the god who gives Moon Knight his powers. Being in the trailer with his staff and his very, very long, you know, bird-like beak appendages. So I can see there being some horror elements in this. Now, it does not tell us who, what's his name, Ethan Hawke is, but his name, if you turn on the subtitles, is Arthur Harrow. And I looked him up, and this was someone Moon Knight fought in like early comic books, but he was only in one episode, and he really has no ties to anything else related. Or not one episode, one issue. So I couldn't tell you if he's like, you know, a vampire or what here. So very, very interesting to see that. And then also one of we'll talk about it later off air, but like one of the shots where, you know, they introduce him is literally, it has the van that you see him driving later. It says Doof wagon or something like that. So I don't think it's Doom, but you can see the wagon. But anyway, there's nothing given away, but I'm still curious. I want to know what's going on here in this.
Yeah.
In this show.
Also, I feel like we should mention. I don't know I don't know how to pronounce the actor's last name, but his first name is Gaspard, who is supposed to be playing Midnight Man, or at least the not the alter ego, like the normal identity of the character, has died in a tragic ski accident. So we don't know what, you know, how much he is involved in the first season of Moon Knight. I'm not super familiar with the actor, so if somebody is a really big fan of this person, I apologize, but you know, I don't think we're out of the realm of that character maybe being recast. You know, this isn't necessarily like a Chadwick Boseman situation, but this is a very tragic accident. Yeah. You don't often get these headlines before like the show comes out. And, you know, it is a series, so usually when you're talking about like a long-form narrative, you're kind of hoping your cast will be around longer. So there's going to be a little bit of, pivoting that the show is going to have to do. But like, man, we've lost a lot of actors, well-known and not so well-known at the beginning of this year. So everybody stay careful out there. I'm not saying any accident is anybody's fault, but like, man, like. You never know when you're gonna go. It's very, very depressing.
Yeah, and Midnight Man's interesting because he's literally, I think, only in 4 issues of Marvel stuff. So he's a very minor character. So I don't know. I mean, hopefully, you know, they can maintain the show as is, and if they do need to recast, they can later. So we'll see how that goes. Very, very tragic accident.
I think Midnight Man is more of an antagonistic character.
Yeah.
But Marvel always loves flipping the script on characters and putting people in shades of gray if it fits the story well.
He kind of reminds me. He looks like the Kazi guy from the Hawkeye show.
Oh yeah, a little bit.
Like they have like the same kind of facial features. So, but yeah, we'll keep you guys posted on everything. And then also, this is also the first Marvel TV series or Disney Plus series to reach over 1 million likes on YouTube as well. This trailer did. So that's a pretty good record. I mean, I think that's why I saw everyone kind of being flooded by like, I don't know who Moon Knight is, but we love Oscar Isaac and this looks pretty cool. So I'm like, everyone's on board with this. I think we can go into a supernatural direction and people will be okay. And like you said, with Stranger Things coming back, it might be the year of the supernatural. Scream did really well at the box office last weekend, so I think people are looking to dive back into some horror stuff.
Yeah.
I sent you one version of this, and maybe did I send you the updated version, Mike, of the I believe it's Japan's Disney Plus
Chris has, just for the audience out there, Chris has sent me a couple of these. He keeps getting these kind of international logos of the Marvel Studios properties coming out within the recent future. I guess calendar year. And you've sent me a few versions now where some logos drop in and off, so it seems like maybe you found more of a definitive one.
So this is from the same official, I think, Disney Plus or Marvel and Disney Plus account from Japan. They put out the first one, and it included actually Secret Invasion and What If Season 2 for 2022. However, shortly thereafter, they updated it to remove those. So what we have here are the 4 movies for this year, right? Which are Eternals just at Disney Plus, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Thor: Love and Thunder, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Then also the TV shows Hawkeye, which just debuted, Moon Knight, Miss Marvel, I Am Groot, and She-Hulk for this year. So looks like we're going to be getting at least these on Disney Plus along with that. So it looks like Secret Invasion What If Season 2 were pushed to 2023. If this is our year, 4, I guess 3 movies and 4 shows, that's not too bad. That's a pretty light calendar year, right? I don't feel like that's crunched a lot of shows in that we have to watch here, right? That feels pretty good.
Did you already explain why Hawkeye's on this already?
Because it's on Japan's release schedule is different than America's.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, so like they were, I think, a little later than America's was.
Gotcha. I think out of this whole swath, I'll make just a couple quick armchair guesses. I think Thor: Love and Thunder is probably what I think is going to fulfill what I want the most, just kind of out of Marvel in general this year. I'm extremely curious what we're going to be seeing in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So many question marks up in the air. I can't wait to see the first trailer of this to really kind of set the tone for what we're looking at here. And then I think the other property, which is the biggest question mark, even over Miss Marvel for me, would be She-Hulk, right? Yeah. What are they going to do in like this kind of Hulk universe? How is Jennifer Walters going to be portrayed? Is she always going to be green? What is that going to look like long term?
An abomination.
Obviously, yeah. Oh, yeah. And like we can definitely connect ourselves to CG characters, but I'm curious how Marvel will do that. So interesting year coming up for sure, right?
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think Miss Marvel, not to count it out, we don't know how her powers are going to be, and that's going to really...
Yeah, and that kind of makes me a little nervous, which is kind of why I'm not like really just like marking down the days until I get to see it, right?
So, I mean, I don't know if they'll change it. I don't know if they'll leave it. I mean, none of these have dates, oddly enough. I don't know. We've got a lot of... stuff coming down the line, but I know they've also wrapped principal photography on the Marvels, so they're gonna have to lock that down pretty quick or else change it for there. And then I think the one that has the least amount of impact on the MCU at large is the I Am Groot animated show. So
this is gonna be like Doug Days but with baby Groot.
So I don't think I want to count it out, but it's not something that you're gonna have to watch here. I also think it's interesting that 3 of them have their titles in Japanese, and the others are still in their English logos. They've not adapted those yet. So we'll be keeping our eyes on the schedule throughout the year here. The other one that's possibly not on this list that we know about is the Werewolf by Night one shot that we've talked about. So the other Marvel one shots were actually added to Disney Plus this week, because I think I sent you those as well. So Werewolf by Night could be the next one shot kind of scenario. Theoretically, we know very little about it, but if they could add that later in the year, in the back half, because it's not there. But we talked about Secret Invasion. Secret Invasion is actually filming right now, and we've got some looks here in our show notes at Samuel L. Jackson on set doing his thing. He has got his beanie on, he has got his beard going, and he's eye patchless, Mike. Kind of like the teaser we saw a couple months ago on
Samuel L. Jackson just always looks badass, right? Yeah. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just his filmography, right? He's just always played somebody like tough who, like, is always good to like throw down. So he just kind of has that credential underneath his belt. But it definitely helps his look, right? When you got like this kind of salt and pepper beard, you have this alien scar over your face. It just even just from this telephoto lens, right, looks really cool. And
he's just walking down the street in his winter clothes. He's got a turtleneck sweater on, and like a little pea coat over it. So
well, he's approaching senior citizenhood. You got to keep that circulation up. Got to stay warm. He's got to worry about his digits.
Yeah, well, exactly. But I mean, I'm interested to see. This looks like it might be on Earth. Then I guess is my saying. Like
Yeah, this does seem to be outside, possibly in a maybe downtown area. Just kind of looking at some of the facade of the building behind him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm interested to see kind of what's going on. Secret Invasion is definitely one of the more surprising announcements they made a couple years ago, and bringing Samuel Jackson back into a primary role is definitely something I'm very, very intrigued for. So you can check out those set photos in our show notes. Daredevil, the show on Netflix, season 3 is actually shot back to the top 10 in viewership 3 years after its cancellation, Mike.
Interesting.
I wonder why. We know why. I think spoiler alert for anything kind of going on. If you want to skip ahead, we have time codes. But both Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio have returned to the MCU in their respective roles from Daredevil and Kingpin, and people are going back and watching season 3 now. That doesn't mean Netflix is going to pick up a season 4 by any means, but as you mentioned, if Marvel is truly waiting and seeing, reactionary, this would be give them a good inclination. Yeah, these people are in hot demand still, even several years later. So I've seen a lot of people go back and talk about the first 4 episodes of season 2 of Daredevil, the Punisher arc. People really, really loving that little arc.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting when you think about it, right? You don't want to get into a situation with a superhero character like they do on the CW, right? Where the Flash or the Arrow just has so many episodes, so many seasons, you've tread so much ground that you just kind of are tired of the character and the universe in general, and really just kind of like the diehards that are just looking for just kind of like the schlocky drama stick around, right? Yeah. So Daredevil has already had like 3 lengthy seasons, I guess, when you could consider kind of like a prestige, quote unquote, like superhero drama, right? So if Charlie Cox was to come back as Daredevil, it's kind of like, well, what left do you have to tell about his story personally, right? Obviously, you can tell tons of story with the character Daredevil teaming up with other characters, but if you're going to do like a brand new like Disney Plus season with Charlie Cox as Daredevil, you're going to have to add to it. You're going to have to prop it up a little bit, or maybe be creative and maybe try to get... I'm just trying to think, is there a cross-section of people that are watching Disney Plus for Marvel stuff that hasn't really ingested the Netflix stuff? So I don't think people need like a primer for what the character is, but yeah, I expect to see Daredevil more added to other characters, right. Not really being the sole focus.
And I think we've talked about Echo being like the main show. I think I can see him added to fairly easily.
Yeah, maybe.
She's ground. She literally has no powers other than the fact she can imitate what she sees, and they didn't even really give us a lot of that in Hawkeye. So there's some opportunity there to have someone with a hearing disability and someone with a visual disability kind of team up throughout that as well. So, and they both have history with the Kingpin, so very, very interesting option there. But yeah, I think here's the other thing. I agree with you. Does he need his own show? If he does, it needs to be it needs to be better, I think, than just fighting ninjas in hallways, right? Like, I think the dragons under the city taking on the hand ninjas, that kind of wore its course out. They got to go a new way. Like, I agree with you 100%. Like, if you're gonna bring him in, put him in the MCU proper, make him have some big stuff to go on that actually means something.
Put him on more rooftops, right? I feel like when I've seen Daredevil on splash pages, or in just the trades that I've read, like, he's always jumping around on rooftops and stuff with that, badass, like, grappling hook cane. I feel like I didn't get a whole lot of that on Netflix, right? No. It was, like you said, hallway-based action, which can be cool, but after, like, 3 seasons of, like, 10-plus episodes, like, what else are you going to put him in?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it needs to be elevated a little bit, because if he's going to play in the big MCU leagues, he needs to be a little more, like you said, he can traverse a little bit more. He's got a little more than some guy making his armor in an underground workshop somewhere kind of thing. So there's opportunities to grow. So maybe they will. Maybe they won't. I don't know. Let's shift gears. I've been thinking about Star Wars a lot lately. Mike, have you been thinking about Star Wars? I feel like you've been thinking about Star Wars.
Yeah, I've been trying to catch up on Boba Fett, so it's been in the back of my head.
Yeah, so the Ahsoka show is going to be filming soon, and in honor of that, they've announced that they've added actress Mary Elizabeth Winstead to the cast of this, and people might know her from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, with 10 Cloverfield Lane, and then also Birds of Prey as the Huntress.
Yeah, I mean, I love Mary Elizabeth Winstead mainly because Scott Pilgrim is one of my favorite movies of all time. She was also, like you said, 10 Cloverfield Lane. I loved her in that. So, yeah, if she wants to roll in and get some of that Disney dump trunk money, I'm happy for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's also, I believe, has been dating Ewan McGregor for several years. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's
was Ewan McGregor in one of those seasons of Fargo? The anthology Fargo series.
I believe season 3 with her.
Because I think that's the season that she was in. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Yep. Man, that Fargo, people just date on that show. What was it? Jesse Plemons and the old Mary Jane. What's her name from Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire?
Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah, they're married, and they were in a season of Fargo. So I guess if you're in Hollywood and you want to find your partner, you got to be in a season of Fargo.
Got to be in Fargo, yeah. So, but that ties her to Star Wars a little more. But she's been cast in an unknown role. My first thought was like, oh my gosh, she can play Sabine Wren, but Sabine Wren was already cast for this. So I'm back to square one. So this could be a new character or a classic character. This is set after The Mandalorian. Where it's currently set, where it kind of, I don't know how far in the future, but Ahsoka was in season 2.
I've complained about the Star Wars timeline before, but it's getting really confusing in Boba Fett because they're jumping back and forth in time. Not a whole lot, right? But you kind of have to be like, okay, well, how long was he in the Sarlacc pit? They haven't been totally clear. Mm-hmm. So that was like right at Jedi. There's like no time difference. I would assume he got out of it relatively quickly, but then how long has it been since he left the Raiders? So I've been so confused. And then you have to think like, okay, but it's not quite to Mando yet. I really need a chart. I need a helpful laminated pocket chart when I'm watching anything on Disney.
I know you're not caught up yet, so I think the next one will help you get your head around where it is.
Okay.
But I usually say, is he in the Bacta tank? Then that's the past. If he's out of the Bacta tank, it's in the future.
Oh yeah, no, I can clarify that, right? But then it's what is the chronological timeline between all these things, and it's tough.
Text me when you watch the new one. I want to see if you figure it out a little bit more. I think you'll be better. I think you'll be a little bit better. So
how long can somebody in Mandalorian armor survive the acidic nature of a Sarlacc, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to eat and drink eventually, right? So he can't be in there for more than 3 days you can go without water. water. Even if his backpack, right, it's got jets, maybe it's got water too, and some stacks. At most, he was in there for, I'm thinking, 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, it's also Star Wars, so I'm not going to really put the laws of our modern physics in play. But when he did get out, the ship was still crashed around the pit. It looked like maybe it was still smoking even a little bit. So I would say a couple days, to get out. But who knows how long he was, with the Raiders. I agree with you there. Anyway, back to Ahsoka, which is post season 2 of Mandalorian, because we met Ahsoka there in live action. Rosario Dawson, great actress, great representation. So we'll be moving forward from the Mandalorian, which is 6 years after the Return of the Jedi. So we'll see where this comes up and see if they announce it as they start filming, because chances are, I know they do a lot of these shows in the what's it called, the volume. You don't get a lot of leaked set photos, but some of them have been out and about lately, I believe. So who knows what we'll see down the road. Speaking of Star Wars, and this is where I've really been thinking about Star Wars, is the Lego Star Wars, the complete saga, the Skywalker saga, was finally given a release date of April 5th. So, just like, I think 72 days, like, a little under over 2 months. The gameplay came out today. And so I did not know this, but they actually rebuilt all the Lego gameplay engine for the new generation of consoles. So you're not like replaying like remastered versions of the ones for like original Xbox and 360. So these are actually like, built from the ground up, and you actually can play through literally all 9 movies, and you get to pick which movie you want to play, and then you'll play through in order of operations of, I guess, the planets and like the storyline in those. And they've added.
Does Microsoft own this company yet?
No,
I don't know.
Telltale, I believe, is Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers makes the Lego games, ironically, this is a Disney property. They also did Lego Star Wars, but that's why they have like Lego DC like come out like every other year. Like it's on a Call of Duty schedule almost over there. But the Lucasfilm games are pretty cool. So I would love to see a Lego Marvel Cinematic Universe next. Like literally, like you pick, like, I want to play the Iron Man movies, and then like I want to play the Thor movies kind of thing. I think that would be really cool thinking about this. But like, there's just something, like you said, about using lightsabers and blasters and like the sounds of the Star Wars universe that we always talk about. They use those same sounds and noises and like, I guess, the stuff in here, and it just takes me back to being, the nostalgia of good Star Wars days, right? Where everyone didn't hate Star Wars and no one was cranky about it. Where you just love Star Wars for what it was, and that's the simple times. I really love that, and I'm really excited. So I don't know if you got a chance to watch this gameplay or scrub through it a little bit, but there are over 300 characters to choose from by the time this game's said and done, and
well, that's.
It's
quite a lot.
Yeah, it's quite a few. I don't know if I can name all 300 of them. But have you ever played any of the Lego Star Wars games before?
A little bit. I'm familiar with kind of the aesthetic and just the gameplay in general of a Lego adventure game. It's funny actually how well Lego just in general as a concept really attaches to any and all IP, because they've done video games, they've done the real physical things, they've done movies. I mean, we know the Lego studio has been sold or pivoted to another studio. It wasn't Warner Brothers? No, it was Universal. I think that's who has the Lego. Like, we might be seeing Fast and Furious Lego movies. I don't remember. But Lego can be attached to anything.
Yeah, they literally will attach them to everything. So with this one, so in the other ones, you get gold bricks. You remember gold bricks? You collect them, and like then you can unlock more characters or whatever. Well, instead of that, they have Beskar bricks, I believe it was. No, not Beskar. The other thing. What are the Kyber bricks? Kyber bricks or Kyber crystals.
Okay.
And you actually can buy upgrades for the characters rather than the actual, like, a character class rather than an actual, like, buy characters. So you like get better abilities and stuff to do with the characters throughout. So I'm like, oh, that's actually a much better way to play these games, because you'd want the abilities rather than just buy, I want to buy, Jar Jar Binks. He's not really going to do anything for you. Like, it's Jar Jar Binks. He's going to be annoying, follow you around. I don't know. So I'm very excited. Me, I'm a gamer. I love Lego Star Wars. I think it's going to be, a hit in our house because, it's couch co-op, 2-player, very low stakes gameplay. Like, you're not in a do or die situation. You're not playing for number one place. you just work together and have a good time with it. So I'm very, very excited for this game to come out. The Batman, I believe, is our next superhero movie. Is that right? I'm not counting Uncharted.
Yeah, I think so. When it comes to kind of like the big flagship, things releasing.
Yeah, because I know you've cried a lot about Morbius being delayed till April. So we got the Batman, but they have officially come in and announced that this movie will be 2 hours and 47 minutes long.
That's 2 minutes longer than The Dark Knight Rises. Which was, quote unquote, like Nolan's, magnum opus for the Batman movies. And I remember sitting through that, and that felt so long. Maybe because I wasn't enjoying it so much, but
I'm actually wrong. It's 2 hours and 55 minutes.
No, Chris, what are you doing to me? Making it even longer.
Because I believe someone backed out the credits for me.
Okay.
Like theoretically the credits. So it's 2 hours and 55 minutes with the credits. I'm going to assume there's a post-credit scene on this. I would not doubt that they do that. But I've seen a lot of the director Matt Reeves going. He's been doing the Dolby Atmos test, the DTX test in like their test theaters to make sure the sound works. So I believe this movie is like completely cut, ready to go. Like they're not making any more changes until it releases. The WB Warner Brothers actually reportedly tested a 4-hour cut of this film, Mike.
Yikes!
Who do they think they are? Zack Snyder?
Yeah, I wonder where that. I wonder how likely that was even as a possibility. There's always longer cuts. Especially like assembly cuts of things. Yeah. But maybe they just like, let's just test the waters. So who knows what that could be. But I was telling Chris earlier before we started recording that my wife has met her limit on Batman movies. We saw the Batman trailer in front of Spider-Man: No Way Home, and she was like, they're still making more of these, and it just kind of reminded me like, oh yeah, I just kind of had this realization that was kind of dumbfounded, but like they will be making Batman movies until the day that I die, and then they'll keep making them. So it's this weird repetitive thing where it's like, yeah, the train's not going to stop. It's always going to happen. Like there is somebody that is being born like today, right, that will probably be the next Batman in like 2 decades or 2.5 decades. It's just crazy.
So my question is for that now, does she count Batman v Superman as a Batman film?
I think she counts anything that I drag her to the theater where she has to see somebody with a graveled voice.
Okay. Well, then I would say, in that regard, there have been 8 Spider-Man solo movies, not to mention his other ones, and much less Batman films.
Maybe this is just kind of like a generalized feeling for an audience that the more lighthearted your movie might be, the easier it kind of is to put up with multiple iterations. Yeah,
because that's.
But either way, I was telling Chris like she doesn't know though about the 3-hour runtime, so I'm going to kind of see what her reaction is once I tell her. I might be seeing this alone, which is okay. It's not that big of a deal, but
just buy 2 tickets.
Hey babe, do you want to sit down and watch Batman for 3 hours? Yeah. I think I'm gonna get a resounding no.
Yeah. You can be like, well, I mean, does she like Paul Dano? Like going to watch Paul Dano for 3 hours?
You remember that corpse that was farting around? He was hanging out with Paul Dano. You want to see him be the Riddler?
Yeah, exactly. You want to go see that? There will be blood. He was the kid, right? I think so. He's a good actor. But anyway, 3 hours is going to be a long time. Not that we're not used to those at this point, but man, for a solo film like this, the debut solo film for Robert Pattinson's Batman, this is gonna be big. Presumably, tickets will also go on sale February 10th. I'm still holding out that they might do them post Super Bowl, which I believe is the 14th. I believe 13th or 14th. So I could be wrong, but we'll see how this plays out. But it seems like mid-February is when these tickets are going to go on sale to get to Batman. So I think other than Spider-Man, Batman will be the next big thing. Unless other people are burning out on Batman as well. We're tired of dark, depressed movies. Any dark, depressed time in our lives. So let's not go watch it. On the flip side, they are filming the Batgirl movie still, so that's pretty cool. And then we got our first look at Brandon Fraser on set. Looks like he just kind of showed up in regular clothes.
love Brendan Fraser, like most millennials out there. Looking forward to seeing him in the movie. But this, I feel like this is like the opposite of the other set photo we were talking about with Samuel L. Jackson. Very similar setting, right? The actor on a sidewalk on a set, telephoto lens, but just does not have the badassness of Samuel L. Jackson. No. But this looks like a man that's gotten off a long, hard day's work of like running like a garbage truck or something. And I don't know if that's the origin of the character that the character he's playing or not, but yeah, he looks like he's all dolled up in his best greasy attire.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, I'd say like look like his jacket was like burnt, right? Like are you like maybe soot covered?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Like, is he a chimney sweep by trade during the day? I do enjoy it's a Christmas aesthetic in Gotham yet again over here. You can see in the first photo like the Christmas decorations and the icicles.
Oh yeah, there is a little bit, isn't there? Yeah.
So I there's really not much to pull out of this, but he's on set filming. He is rumored to play Firefly, which is a main villain for in the Batman Rogues Gallery, and possibly doing the pyromaniac kind of stuff. He's also in, I believe, Arkham Knight, the third Arkham game, as well as someone who pops up. But like, it's are we in the Brendan Fraser Renaissance, the Fraser-sance?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because he's in absolutely Doom Patrol, right? And
yeah, I feel like the Fraser-sance would be a little bit more pronounced if he wasn't voice acting for Doom Patrol, right? He's got to get his face out there. I know he's been doing some other stuff, and he gets his face out there. But maybe this will kind of really solidify. It'll be the peak of the Fraser-sance, and hopefully the peak will last a while.
Yeah, and I believe he's in the Killers of the Flower Moon we talked about last time, the Scorsese thing for Apple TV, I believe. So. With Jesse Plemons as well to bring him back into this, so yeah, I think he's got some upcoming stuff. I think he's back in.
Man, if I could get a Brendan Fraser, Jesse Plemons, anything together,
yeah.
I mean, Jesse Plemons, that dude is like so magnetic that he made me slightly endure Jungle Cruise. So yeah, if we can get two of them together, that'd be great.
I'm going to disagree on Jungle Cruise. I think his accent was like one of the most like grating things in the world, but yeah, I get it. So, but I think there's opportunity here. Batgirl's filming. We're probably gonna see more set photos out, but we'll bring in the good stuff. We're not gonna deliver, the junky stuff. Switching gears, news I didn't think I'd hear this week. Godzilla is getting a live action, the MonsterVerse from the live action stuff, a TV series at Apple TV Plus. I thought this was kind of dead after the Godzilla versus Kong thing, and that was on HBO even. So looks like Legendary's looking to milk this cow a little longer, if you will. I did see that this kind of went under the radar. Matt Fraction, not the creator of Hawkeye, but the guy who wrote My Life is a Weapon, the Hawkeye thing the series is based on, is actually an executive producer on this show as well. He is
okay, that's not too bad.
He is a longtime Godzilla fan. You can go look at his Twitter account. Like he would build like little cities like out of cardboard for his kids. Like they can dress up as Godzilla and go crush. Like he's a big fan of Godzilla stuff like that and kaiju. So I'm okay with this. Really depends on how much budget they want to put into the effects, right? Like, is it going to be one of those we're going to focus on the humans and only have the monsters and a couple shots an episode, or is it really going to be hey, here's the monsters?
Yeah, because that's the biggest complaint, right, of that monster universe that's been established, is the human stuff is the most mind-numbing thing you have to set through until you see the big creatures. I think the first thing I said, oh no, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, and it doesn't have to be, but whoever wrote them made the humans the worst possible versions of people in that fucking world. So, but yeah, go on.
But also, I mean, Apple Plus, they got the money, right? If they wanted a 4 to 6 episode season, maybe you could cram a lot more monster in there budget-wise, right? Because the special effects team, there was a lot of behind-the-scenes special effects stuff that came out when that last Godzilla vs. Kong movie came out to really hype it up. There's so much work that goes into visual effects of those movies. So there's going to be a big budget to pump out these episodes. You know, if you follow like a formula, right, that a lot of action TV shows follow, is you got to have at least one action set piece per episode. Usually, if you're lucky, you can get 2. I think the average is kind of like 1.5. So if we could get that each episode, that could be nice. But I think the first thing I said to you when you sent me this news earlier this week is Legendary. It's like the last unconnected studio to like a streaming service, right? I feel like they're just ripe to get bought. Yeah. I mean, I just looked them up on Wikipedia. Their parent company is like this Chinese conglomerate called like Wanda Corporation or something. So I can't imagine that they wouldn't part with it if they were given enough money, or who knows, maybe there's a scenario where like Apple buys Wanda. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know exactly how that goes down on paper, but yeah, it's just it's almost a little refreshing, right, to almost see like a free agent out there with IP in the streaming landscape, right? You know, I was half expecting this to be on HBO Max, right, because that's where the movies came out, but no, they were just the distributor. So I guess good for Legendary. Maybe they'll stay independent and they'll just keep making stuff for other people, because I don't think Legendary has the rights to Hellboy anymore, or is that Warner Brothers? I don't know who. But let's operate under the hypothetical scenario, right? That Legendary has the rights to Hellboy. You know, that means, you know, you could see Hellboy on Apple Plus or HBO Max or possibly Netflix, whoever is the most interested in it, because that's the most likely scenario for Hellboy moving forward.
Yeah, I think Hellboy's Dark Horse, and I think they might have Dark Horse. Anyway, well, I think you're right. Legendary is a wild card out here, right? I think didn't they do Del Toro's kaiju movies, Pacific Rim? Aren't they also? Yeah. So like they have a stake in these monster verses. They're making these big things. They're doing spectacle film. They can make them. They just don't have a distributor, and that's the interesting part here, right? They can literally go from Warner Brothers, all the Godzilla and Kong movies at Warner Brothers, to the TV show at Apple TV Plus. Because I don't think they're married to anybody, but this is. I want to see a good TV show. I don't want it to just be an afterthought, kind of thing. So I'm hoping that they have the right team behind it, who will focus on the right stories and put, like, if there is humans in here, they're not just stupid people. Like, there's not like, I run a monster podcast and like the one person who listens to it happens to.
Oh, I forgot about that.
to get into a tunnel that takes us to Japan or something where they're raising. It was the stupidest thing ever. I said I even forgot it happened until you brought it up. But like, I really want a good this, because I think, the Godzilla, King Kong, the world they built, especially at the end of the second one with the Ghidorah film, like, where they brought all the other creatures out of the earth, was pretty damn cool. And then it's kind of dropped it all for Kong versus Godzilla, and they only really had 3 fights in that whole film. So you guys know how we feel about that one. Yeah, moving along, the last bit here, the last powerhouse franchise that's still going on, but doesn't have a TV show, is Lord of the Rings, Mike. The extended editions, I bought those over the holidays, the 4K ones, so to watch those. But now Amazon has been working on these Lord of the Rings TV show for a long time, and all we've got to show for it so far is this little teaser here, and the name called The Rings of Power. Which actually, to me, makes it sound pretty cool, because they did make a bunch of Rings of Power, but the movies only focus on the one ring, right? So this is going to be back in the history when Sauron made rings for elves, dwarves, and men, and kind of what those meant and how that looked. And while, this teaser doesn't give us any of that, it just gives us the name, I thought, as someone who went to film school, the way they shot this was practical and it's pretty cool as shit. Like, I think the behind the scenes is cooler than the actual teaser itself.
I was just looking at that. Yeah, it is. Maybe that's just a kind of a way to flex, like, how much money you have for this show, because if you kind of look through the normal announcement, it's very kind of like macro photography up close of watching, metal get poured, and it's
I thought it was CG at first. Yeah,
it honestly looks like it. Maybe the water that goes over it is CG, or is that
no?
real?
That's real. That's real. You actually see them shoot the water over it in one of the scenes.
That's honestly pretty crazy that it doesn't look real. I guess that just goes to show how the eye can be fooled nowadays. But yeah, that's always the tone of things now, right? If you want to do something practically, build something, it costs more money than to do it in a computer. So if they're just doing it, if they're already blowing money, right, on a little teaser trailer without any in-camera footage of like characters and what you're actually going to see in an episode, like, I think we're going to see something pretty impressive.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, just watching it in and of itself is pretty cool. It gives you like, oh, they're casting the rings. We're going to see the rings made and all the abilities they have. But like, like you said, if they're actually going practical, and that's what people remember about the original trilogy is the practical effects and how a lot of love and care is put into it, that kind of maybe reassures us a little bit about the show, right? I know they're supposed to be spending theoretically a lot of money on this TV show, like hundreds of millions of dollars on this TV show. And while we know very little about it, and hopefully it's not just money thrown at a wall for, hey, it looks good, but and everything's shallow. Hopefully everything is thought about and everything is being done to make this a good show and a good representation of the Lord of the Rings universe here 20 years after the originals hit the theaters. So I thought this behind the scenes thing was cool as shit, man. I've watched it more than the actual release trailer because they do the steam, they do the smoke, they do the water, they do the hot molten lava. You actually get to see the camera is doing high frame rate, and as the liquid comes around in real time, you see the camera move really quickly and like in a preloaded shot. So I wonder how many times it took them to do some of this stuff.
And smart, they got 2 pieces of content out of it, right?
Yeah.
So they got 2 videos to post.
That's right. They got both Lord of the Rings nerds and film nerds stoked all at once here. Like, very, very thrilled for that. But other than that, I don't know much else about this show. I know, there's my cousin's husband. He's like, I know watch parties are a thing in the past, but when this comes out, I'm going to have watch parties at my house. I'm like, okay, let's pump
we're not big Tolkien heads. We obviously like the movies and enjoy kind of the world, but this is given off a little bit of maybe Ghostbusters vibes a little bit of just in the sense of like, I don't know what's happening, but it looks cool.
To me, it's I would align it more with The Witcher. Like, I don't know what's happening, but it looks cool. Like, I didn't read the books of The Witcher. I don't know the lore, but like, there's mystical, magical things, and so
that makes more sense, more fantasy aligned than science fiction modern day.
Exactly. So I think it's cool. Both those videos are linked in our show notes if you guys want to see the one for the practical shots, because I'm just like, again, just nerding out so hard over that. That was just so cool to see that happen. That's our show for the week. Kind of a light week here on topics, but still a good week nonetheless. Mike, always a pleasure. If people know what you're doing, what you're up to, where can they find you, buddy?
Oh, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com. Chris, if people want to catch up with you, where can I find you? You
can find me on Twitter, Valdan, VALDAN, or Instagram, Valdan87. Now, I don't do this very often, but on Facebook they have like a memories button now that takes you back on things. And I pulled it up the other day, and it was like I shared like it was your Five Guys comic from like 2013 or something, and I was like,
oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
I'm like, have we been doing this kind of stuff for this long? Like, not the podcast, but like, good lord,
we're
like
old. We're elder millennials, I feel like, as they say now.
Yeah, that's true. What was it? Was it in one of our group chats today? Someone said if you're over 33, you act with React, like PNGs.
Oh yeah, GIFs. Like I know if somebody replied to me with a reaction GIF, they're over the age of 33.
Yeah.
And then that same day I saw a headline that I guess the younger generation is not into animated GIFs anymore. I'm not saying it's a blanket statement, but the younger generation, they've moved on to other ways of interacting, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how I feel sometimes. But if people know more about the show, what we're doing, where can they find all that stuff at?
Oh, the best place to go, as always, is superheroslate.com. That is the headquarters for our show. You can get our awesome show notes over there. So if you want to see the link to the Moon Knight trailer, if you want to see that screenshot that Chris keeps sending me of all those Japanese schedules for this year for Marvel, we got that in our show notes. we got that all there at superheroslate.com. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else you love to listen to fine podcasts. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and you can get merch at superheroslate.com/store. We love hearing from you. We love it when you reach out. Are you down to clown with the 3-hour Batman movie? I know there's not a clown in it. It's the Riddler. Is that enough? Is Paul Dano enough to get you to sit down for 3 hours? Let us know. Reach out. If you're a super fan of the show, or if you want to be a super fan of the show, we love it when you share the show with a friend and share the show with a buddy. And like every week, we'll be here every week because we're too crazy and we don't stop, and we've been doing this for years, and our bones will dry and crumble and fall apart. And we'll still be doing this podcast somehow.
That's right. There'll be 15 more Batman movies before we get done with this thing. So, sounds good. Well, in that case, we'll catch you guys next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.